When did you know the Stermers in 2007?
Yes.
And did you become aware of a fire that happened at their home?
Yes.
How did you become aware of that?
My cousin heard it on the scanner, and she knew that we were friends with Todd and Linda, and she got a hold of us and said that there was a fire, and so we immediately ran over to provide comfort to both of them, thinking that it was their fire of their home.
So when you got there, do you recall if there was anyone else there at the time?
There was the fire chief, Stephen Leach. I believe the assistant chief at the time was Doug Harrington, and he was there. And one of the fire department vehicles was there. And the only other ones that we saw were Mathany's, Mike. But I was focused on Linda.
So were you able to drive down the driveway, or how did you get to the house?
We didn't want to impede any of the rescue vehicles, so we parked our truck along the road on the opposite, or near the driveway, but not in the driveway. We didn't want to impede rescue vehicles.
Because at the time, were there any fire trucks there?
There was just one at that point in time. And after we got there, then, they came rolling in.
And were you able to then make contact with anybody to approach the house?
The only ones we saw at that point in time were Doug Harrington, and then I saw Linda, and I just immediately went to her.
So you just ran down the driveway?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so where did you first see Linda at?
On the hill to the north side of the house, near where Todd was laying. And at that point, they were still trying to administer first aid. And so I just ran to her and wrapped her in my arms.
And were you able to speak to her at that time?
Very little. We were all so emotional at that point. I was just trying to provide comfort at that point.
And who was with you? Who came with you to the house?
My husband was with me, and then also my cousin Annette, who was there as well.
And then what did your husband do?
I believe he went to where Todd was, and he came back immediately, and he said, "Do not go near there." The dogs were, like I said, we had a love of dogs, and one of their dogs was actually one of my dogs that I raised and train and breed, and so the dogs were trying to jump. One of the dogs was trying to jump back into the house, and so my husband was trying to corral the dogs. Coco came right to me because, like I said, she used to be mine, so she ran right to me, and so we were able to keep her safe. But then my husband was trying to get the other one.
So there were two dogs?
Yes.
Do you recall what Linda was wearing at that time?
No, I don't remember the specific clothes. I know that it was for a January day. It was actually very pleasant. It started out that way. And then it kind of started to get a little less pleasant. And one of the firefighters, and I don't remember if it was Chief Leach or who it was, brought a blanket. And so she had the blanket wrapped around her.
Did you notice if she had anything on her feet?
I did notice that she did not have anything on her feet. She was in her stocking feet.
And did you do anything to help with providing anything for her feet?
Yes, because especially when it started to get sleety and rainy, I was worried that her feet would get cold, and so I asked her what size shoes she wore, and she told me, and I knew that one of my aunts wore a 9 narrow, and so I let my cousin Annette know, who then contacted her mother and gathered up clothes and things for her and shoes so that she would have something on her feet.
And did they ultimately bring those clothes and shoes to the scene?
Yes.
And were you there then when Linda was able to change into those clothes and
Yes.
shoes? Where were you when she was changing into those clothes?
I was, I believe she put the shoes on right away, but then when she changed clothes, one of the, I don't remember if it was the rescue or if it was a police officer, but they had her go into like a van and she changed clothes in that.
And did you see what they did with the clothes?
I just saw them put them in a bag.
How long did you stay on scene?
Quite a while. Like I said, I mean, she had no one else there with her from the family, and I knew that she needed somebody. I couldn't imagine going through that alone.
Did you stay into the evening hours?
I believe I stayed until she did have someone come, one of her family members, I believe. I don't know for sure who it was, but then they did take her, and then we left the scene.
Did she talk to you at all about what had happened that day while you were on scene?
No, she was very emotional, and then I think about the only thing she did ask was when things were, I guess, wrapping up, when she was getting ready to go, her concern was, would you take the dogs? Would you take care of the dogs for me? And we said, of course.
So you ended up.
So we took the dogs with us, and we took care of them until they went back to family.
So did you have an opportunity to talk with Linda after the fire?
Yes. She came to the house a few times, and we sat at our kitchen table, and we were just trying to all make sense of what had happened. And so yes, she did come a few times, to check on the dogs, and then also, we were friends, and so came and we had been there, and so yeah, we did share a few times.
Did you ever ask her about what had happened?
Yes.
And do you remember what she told you when you first asked her?
I don't remember the order of what we were told, but it did change each time. And one time it was, he had a cold, and she had given him some Benadryl, and she thought that maybe he was drowsy or sleeping from that, and that when whatever happened, he couldn't get out.
Did she say where he was?
In his chair in the living room.
Did she say where she was?
She said she was in the basement.
Did she say what she was doing?
All right, much more from neighbor Linda Thompson in just minutes. We're going to hit a break. When we come back, Court TV Live continues right here. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julie Grant. We'll get you back into the courtroom in Michigan in just a moment. But first, an update for you in the case of the Long Island serial killer. Newsday is reporting defendant Rex Heuermann and his estranged wife, Asa Ellerup, have reached a divorce settlement. As for Heuermann's murder case, according to WABC, his attorneys are asking to disqualify some of the DNA evidence that was collected by investigators. Heuermann's defense team is arguing a new technique of whole genome sequencing hasn't been tested in New York courts and cannot be trusted. Heuermann's going to be in court this morning for what's called a Fry hearing, an evidentiary hearing on that evidence. And we believe this is going to become a key focus. So with that, we're going to monitor any developments this morning and share them with you later today on Court TV Live. Now, we return to the battered and burned murder trial of Linda Stermer. Let's go back in the courtroom. We're hearing from one of the Stermers' neighbors who saw the event.
Did she say what she was doing?
I believe she said she was doing laundry.
And then did she tell you how she, or why, or if she went upstairs?
She said she heard something and she ran up the stairs and saw that there was a fire and she couldn't get up. And so then she went out the walkout basement door and ran around to the van to try to get help.
Did she say she ever saw Todd before she ran out the basement door?
At that point, no. Later, she did say that she did see him, and that he ran out as she was trying to drive the van to go get help, and that was all. Just that she saw him when she was in the van trying to get help.
So that was at a later date?
Correct.
That she said she saw him outside?
Correct.
And you said that as you talked to her then, the story changed a little bit?
Yes.
Do you recall then the next version or what the next thing she told you?
One of the other things she had said was that he was smoking pot, and she thinks that he caught himself on fire.
Did you ever know Todd to smoke pot?
I didn't know.
Did she ever talk to you about anything about heating with kerosene?
Yes, we knew that they heated with kerosene as they were building the home. They had a kerosene portable heater in the living room, and that they would fill the kerosene heater there.
Did she say that the kerosene heater was being used that day?
I don't recall.
At one point when you were helping with the dogs, did you see the van?
Yes.
And tell me about when you saw the van.
We were trying, Coco was under control, the chocolate lab, and we were trying to get control of the other dog, and he kept trying to get back in the house, and so we were really worried that he would do that and get hurt or injured or killed. So my husband and I kind of tried to corral him, and he ran around to the walkout level, and when we ran down there after the dog, I saw the van door open. The van was running, and I observed what looked like blood on the front fender, and I believe bumper, but definitely on the fender. And I remember my husband and I looked at each other, and we both said the same thing: something's not right.
Could you tell if the van was running at that time?
Yes, it was running.
Did you ever ask her about the van?
No.
Did you ever tell her what you saw?
No.
Did she ever tell you anything about the van?
No. Other than at the beginning, she said she was in the van to get help.
When you were there on scene, did you see any smoke or flames?
Yes. When we got there, there was smoke coming out of the lower windows, and it was shocking to me how quickly even with fire department there, how quickly the home was within. It seemed like within a minute and a half, there were flames coming out of the roof. It was so fast. It was shocking.
So when you got there, it was just more smoke?
Correct. We could see a little bit of flame in the front lower level windows, but we didn't see any smoke or flames coming out of the upper story until, like I said, it was a very, very short period of time, and then there's smoke and flames everywhere.
So I want to just be clear, there's the walkout level,
Correct.
there's the main level,
Right.
and then there's a second story, correct?
Correct.
So when you say when you first got there and you saw the smoke, you're talking about the main level?
The main level, as we were coming up the driveway, it's an inclined driveway, and as we got up, closer up on top of the hill, we observed the smoke coming out of those windows. The main level front windows, roadside windows.
Did you ever talk to Linda about where the boys were?
Yes, that was our first concern. Where are the children? And we asked that, immediately when we first saw her. Where are the children? And she said the children were safe. They were gone. I think she said they were in Kalamazoo. But she did say that the children were safe because we were very, very concerned that they might still be in the home.
Did she say why they went to Kalamazoo?
No.
When you saw the van, how close was it to the back of the house?
I would say within 5-6 feet of the little walkout door.
Were you ever interviewed that day by police officers on scene?
No, we got there before the police officers were there, and then what we later found as we left, that there were police stationed at the base of the driveway taking the names of everybody, but we didn't realize that was going on, or I didn't realize that was going on. So we never, as far as I know, we were never on that list because we were there before that took place.
And then when you left, you just left.
Right.
Is it safe to say that that was a pretty chaotic scene that day?
Very, very, very traumatic and emotional, yes.
And do you see Linda Stermer in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Yep. Could you point to her and describe her by something she's wearing?
Ms. Stermer is the person that she knows that was there on January 7th.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Oh boy, that witness was good for the state, talking about the ever-changing stories told by Linda Stermer. Do we have a pants on fire situation here? Certainly seems so to me. Let me bring in our legal analyst guest this hour, see what he thinks. Joe Tamburino watching along. All right, Joe, what do you think of this witness?
I agree with you. It's going to be hard for the defense. I don't know how they're going to cross-examine her. She brings a few things to the table. One is her demeanor. She's very matter-of-fact, and it's obvious she remembers these things. Two is she really doesn't have a motive to lie. I mean, she's a friend and everything. And three is she gives some interesting pieces of what Ms. Stermer said. I mean, what I caught on and what I think is important, this whole thing about whether or not the victim was smoking marijuana. She never knew that the victim had used marijuana. This whole situation of like trying to say, well, the victim could have been not in his right mind for different things when this supposed arson took effect. So I think she's a good witness for the state, and it's going to be hard to cross-examine her.
Definitely, Joe. I think you're absolutely right. And how about Linda Stermer? You know, the changing stories. You know, and then when she said, oh, he was smoking pot, caught himself on fire, and this woman saying, I never knew him to do that. What do you think here? Is the devil in the details with Linda Stermer? What do you think, Joe?
Well, many times it is in the details, but I think in this type of a situation, you could take, as people say, you know, the 20,000-foot view of the case. And when you look at all these changes of stories, what that goes to is credibility. And every time, in every type of prosecution, the jury wants to determine, is the defendant credible, whether they testify or not. Because if the defendant gave a statement and the statement comes in, that's evidence. It's like testifying. So the jury wants to see, was the defendant consistent? Because if you're not consistent in your statements as the whole situation progresses, you know, that makes people think, gee, you're probably not telling the truth.